Look who woke me up this morning. I bet old Taylor's got it.
All right, it's a new day, a new beautiful morning in Orus, the place in Kenya you're not going to find on a map. I've had the privilege to be here probably 20 times in my life, and it is special to me. One of the reasons is it used to be a missionary's compound, a guy named Art Davis, who has impacted me as much or more than anybody in missions, because he taught me about the least of these, those with access to the gospel and those without access to the gospel. When you talk about Kenya, you got to have that conversation, because so much of Kenya has a gospel witness. But up here in the northern parts, very few efforts have been made to advance the gospel, with rare exception, and this guy's life is one of them. He lived where we're standing right now for 30 years. He raised his family in this compound right here. Now this guy, he has been all in, and he has served. He has given his time. It's time for others to pick up the baton, and that's exactly what happens. Now when he came here, there was less than a handful of Christians, but not only have people come to Christ, but second generations have come to Christ. So there's Pokot people in here who are ready to advance the gospel into the villages we were at yesterday. So these places further to the north, the further north you go from here, less and less and less, not just Christianity, but any efforts at all to bring the gospel. And so that makes this location even more strategic, because we are going to transition this into a partial training center. So the people who are first generation Christians now will get trained. They will come here. They will stay here. There will be leaders, some coming from Nairobi, but other areas. In some cases, we'll send American pastors and teachers, but there's a lot of resources right here. And so we'll mobilize Pokot leaders with the gospel. We'll send them into the places of the north, and this place is going to become a launching pad for it all. So it's a part of World Mission's strategy to not only bring converts, but to make disciples and discipleship makers. And that's what's happening right here now in Orus, Kenya. So in Orus, and just a couple things about the Pokot. It's such a fascinating people group. Right now, we are in the midst of rainy season. So you can see it's like green and lush. Or this is probably in 20 years, the greenest that it's ever been here in Orus. So this is a sign of blessing. Actually, when we arrived, the rain came in, and that's a sign when a visitor comes and rain comes, that's a sign of blessing. So that's always a good thing when you're coming in. You get a little extra favor. But the point of that is that northern Kenya has been under harsh drought conditions for the better part of the last 20 years. And so this place, there's no vegetation, and it's incredibly harsh on the animals. And so the main staples of animals, and these are pastoralists, so these are people who depend on their animals for their livelihood: goats, sheep, cows, and camel. Now the camel really came new onto the scene, because up until just recently it was mainly just cows and goats. But because of the harshness of the droughts, the cows were the first to go. And so then the cows are gone, they die off, and now you just have goats and sheep, and it's very difficult just to survive on them. So that's what began to introduce camels to the Pokot people maybe 10 years ago. So it's very interesting. But right here, this is a place that is bringing life for different reasons, because this is going to become a training center. Now the Pokot, they live in these huts all scattered around here. And so when they come to this training center to get fed the living word and to be launched out. This is like a 5-star hotel accommodation. In fact, I told Rusty, I said, buddy, we're going to Orus and you're going to be good. It's all fine. We are staying in the best hotel in all of Orus. So I got to smile, but then he started to realize, I think Greg's talking about something different. But we had a great time last night. We had a goat roast.
All right, so what you having for dinner, Greg?
Have a little goat.
Give him goat.
Polecat goat. I met the goat before, and they did a fine job.
Like when we heard that sound a little while ago, that was this guy?
That was the goat, yeah. So they prepared it very nice.
Over fire and...
Over fire, yep. They cooked it right over here. And we've got some cabbage and some veggies, so this is outstanding. Outstanding. Enjoyed fellowship. They were singing to us. So a great way to celebrate birthday, someone's birthday. And I know somebody who had an amazing birthday yesterday.
Yes, I had a birthday. And by the way, I got woken up by a very nice little mouse this morning. Right. He walked over me and showed me how he could climb up a power cord and into a wall. It was very impressive.
That's awesome. It sounds like a chorus here. I mean, with all of the noises, the insects, the birds. It's really something special.
Okay, I got a couple quick questions of people that we've seen.
Yeah.
And that it's Rusty here. Hi, I'm carrying the camera. Okay, so guys that are walking around, they got big feathers in their hats. What was that about, you know?
A lot of ceremonial stuff. So it'd be like someone wearing a tuxedo to a dinner event or something like that. So they're not wearing them all the time, but they wear them. And it also indicates their status in society, kind of their pecking order.
And then we've seen a lot of women with a whole bunch of beads around their neck.
Yep. When they have beads on their neck, it means they're married. The more they have, kind of the more prosperous they are. And let's keep in mind that a lot of these ladies are some are the first, but many are the second, third, and fourth wife of the Polecat guys. So that's another indication of your wealth. The more wives you had, because there's a dowry system here in Polecat. So even though we're in a place that if we brought you here, you would say, this has got to be the poorest place I've ever been into in the world. But poverty has a look in it a lot of different ways. There's a lot of wealth here actually among the Polecat. People, I met a guy yesterday, a young man who has 50 goats. He has 4 cows. I mean, just a young guy. He's doing really well. But some of them have hundreds and hundreds of goats. You don't see them because they send them off, in some cases, 100 miles away to grazing land, which is one of the causes of conflict. But back to the dowry system, when you're getting married, you might have to give up, depending on where the woman came from and her family and the status they have in the community. It might be 10 goats, it might be 50 goats, it might be 100 goats and 5 camel. So you have to pay the family of the wife in order to receive her as your wife. So the last time that I was here, because water is so scarce, you want to preserve it as best you can. So a lot of houses that have the tin roofs will have sort of systems like this with the eaves, and that will kind of run over here, the eaves trough. And then the last time I was here, there was a huge bucket that has just gotten really old and looks like they had to throw it away. But the idea is that the eaves trough will catch the water and then it will dump it into a big bucket. Just another way to preserve water. When you're in drought, man, you got to hang on to water. When it comes, you might have a day of rain every 3 months or something like that. So you want to preserve it when it comes. All right, so you hear Rusty and I talking about Orus, and we say it's not on a map. The reason it's not on a map is because this is downtown Orus. So we are standing in the center of the city, so to speak. There's nothing around here, but it just is more of representation of a district. So believe it or not, there's thousands of Polecat that live around here. This just happens to be kind of city center, but it's all these huts and everything. That is why a training center is so strategic, because they can come in from literally, probably 50 miles away. There's nothing for these people to have access to any kind of training. So here in downtown Orus, that's why we're targeting it. This is the key right here to reaching all of the Polecat in the name of Jesus. All right, the last 2 days we have been in some of the most remote places you could find, not only in Kenya, but really anywhere in the world. These tribes are scattered out, and you have to go to get them. I mean, we've probably driven the last 2 days more than 12 hours, I would say. And Rusty might say that's conservative, and it's been
Very conservative.
very conservative, harsh roads. The plan today was to go to Garissa, but we had to abandon that because of difficulties in that area. We'll talk more about later today. So instead of us going to Garissa, which is a very different place than here, this is more of an animist area. Garissa is where Islam is entrenched. You've probably heard of Al-Shabaab, a radical Muslim group from roots in Somalia. That's where they operate out of. And so instead of us going to Garissa, we're bringing some of our leaders, our national leaders, into Nairobi. So we're going to get to spend a few hours with them today, encouraging them encouraging us, hearing what God's doing, and strategizing about the future. So we're going to get in the airplane here, head down to Nairobi, which is about an hour and a half flight. If we were to drive right here, we would be fortunate to make it by nightfall tonight. So we're talking about a trip of well over 12 hours, but the plane can get us there in just over an hour. So we're heading out.
You feeling pretty good about the flight, Captain Sarah?
Feeling great.
Feeling good. Okay. Let's go that way. So we're in, what do we call a zoos? Greg, what is this?
Orus.
A roost. And it's really far. And I know I'm a little overwhelmed. Normally I'm not overwhelmed. Normally I can go and talk. It's no big deal. We've been through so much, and there's so much poverty that it's hard to comprehend. We're in the most luxurious place in Orus last night. There's no electricity, guys. None. There's no water. I was woken up by a mouse, and that's no big deal. And those are the people that have help from World Mission. But you think about the people that are miles and miles and miles away. We meet women that need a ride, and if they don't get a ride, they have to walk to the next town, which may be 5 hours, carrying babies. And so when we get at home and we think about the troubles that we have, are they really that bad? And these people aren't complaining. That's the other thing. How many complaining people do you see on TV every single day? Nobody's complaining here. They're having a great time. These guys came out to look at the plane and waved to Greg, and it's like they brought the feathers to show that this is a huge celebration. And you can go and eat any kind of food anywhere in your town today. You want to have African food, you want to have Mexican food, you want to have Chinese food, you can have anything you want. You live like a king compared to these folks. And they're happy. And so all I can say is be thankful and be grateful. And sometimes it takes going on a trip like this to remind you of that. And maybe by watching this, you might think of all the gifts that God has given you. That's what's on my mind right now.